live from the Four Aces Studios. Four Aces Presents brings to you West Coast Bias.
The following Four Aces production is for mature audiences only. Listener discretion is highly advised.
All right, y'all. What's up? What's up? What's up? I am here. I am Double K. And I'm here with the Doaul. Kind of a rough start because it's been a while since we've done a show. And you're listening to West Coast Bias. Well, at least I hope you know that. You clicked on the link. What's up, Doaul?
Tell man, what's going on?
Not much, man. Not much. All right, y'all. So we were hoping to have the full crew, but missed it by one. Hopefully next month when we come back again, we'll have the full trio here. But let's do this. We'll open up with being the fact that I believe September was the last time. Last year was the last time we did an episode. A lot's happened since then. My 49ers blew a 20-10 lead in the Super Bowl, but it was one of those at least they were there situations. That makes me feel a little bit better. But really more recently, it's been this COVID-19 that's kind of been taking up all the headlines, at least for us, because it took away sports from us, completely and utterly. We can't even go play sports out at the local park. It took sports away. So the question I'm putting forth to us here is how you, sir, Mr. Doaul, have been adjusting to basically life without sports, knowing how much sports was a major part of both of our lives.
Just playing a whole lot of sports video games. That's about it. That's about all you can do. Watching TV, some old games and old footage and stuff like that. But yeah, life sucks. TV's not the same at the very least. So yeah,
and it's funny. I was saying it's funny to me that you bring up the playing video games because as I was discussing with you earlier, I have the game MLB 18, MLB The Show 18. And I was just telling this to one of my coworkers at the job that he's like, yeah, man, I'm kind of missing sports. I was like, well, if you want your sports fix, MLB The Show has this mode called manager mode where you can basically watch the game play itself and you can make little tweaks, like you can warm people up in the bullpen and put new pitchers in or pinch hit for people, or tell a pitcher to pitch aggressively. But literally, if you just turn it on and put your controller down, it's almost like watching a real game. You root for your team.
Yeah.
The emotions are all there, and you just kind of watch. So for all of you people out there missing sports, that's a way to do it. Just set your game up to play against itself and then watch it. Most of these games have such realistic presentation that it's pretty much like watching the game itself.
I play a lot of hoop, so it's just just been that for me.
Yeah.
Um, not too much else.
Right on.
I haven't watched, excuse me, Sports Center forever.
Yeah.
We'll be catching that last dance tonight, but just in terms of just being caught up on something, it's really the
Now,
only news I watch.
now
So it's kind of like, mm,
no, I was gonna say no. You're there. I feel you. Like first take was my morning ritual, and now like even though there's still first take, they're recycling subjects so much that I'm just like, okay, I can't watch you guys literally talk about the same shit from like four different angles, like every day. I'm
yeah,
good. Like so, yeah, it just fucked up my morning routine with that one.
yeah,
But what I'll say, but yeah, no, you're dead right. Like it's just like with sports gone, you don't really watch Sports Center. But you brought up The Last Dance. I was gonna say like I had just spoken to Saint about that, and he was like, "Have you watched it yet?" I'm kind of waiting till after all 10 episodes have been released, and that way I can just
mm,
binge watch all 10 at once because I've become spoiled with all of my internet streaming watching.
yeah,
Like you know what I'm saying, of not really having to wait too long for new episodes of things. So I'd rather just wait until the end before. But I'm in two different NBA groups, and let me tell you,
mm,
it has brought out the worst in both the Jordan fans and the LeBron fans.
yeah, for real.
You know, like LeBron fans literally watching it, spending so much time trying to find a way to discredit Michael Jordan that they aren't
Yeah,
appreciating what they're seeing. And then Jordan fans are going way overboard with thinking that this is somehow proving that he was this god beyond basketball. Michael Jordan was an amazing player. He's my GOAT. But as we've discussed on this show before, GOAT is a very subjective conversation, which is why one can have a
yeah,
personal GOAT, but there will never be truly a GOAT. You know, somebody that was the best of all time. Because no matter how good LeBron is, eventually we will come across somebody better. It may not necessarily be immediately after LeBron retires, but eventually in time we'll come across somebody that we're like, wow, this kid's better than LeBron. It'll happen.
yeah,
You know, just like eventually we came along to LeBron, who everybody's trying to say is better than Jordan, and then there'll be an argument between that kid and LeBron as to who's the GOAT, and people, and then older heads will even throw in Michael Jordan into that discussion. But people got
yeah,
to understand really when they're having a conversation. And this is why all the anger and negativity and hate that some people throw out during that conversation is silly, is because it's all subjective. So if you want to say Kareem's your
yeah,
GOAT, if I want to say Michael's my GOAT, if he wants to say that Bill Laimbeer is his GOAT, guess what? He can say that. That's his GOAT. Yeah,
yeah.
ain't nobody else necessarily gonna be in that pool with him, but if he want to be in that pool alone, he can do it.
Well, like you said, it's all subjective and how people view and their opinion of the game.
Yeah,
So, and where how they want to rate and put players and those categories, so on and so forth. And
yeah,
it's something that's just been done throughout history, and it's not gonna stop. We like
yep,
to compare people and players, eras, so on and so forth. So just let it be. But like you said, you don't have to tear
yeah,
down one player to appreciate another. Or, and understand your reason and your basis. And that's cool, to each his own.
yeah,
And, some people may offer more weight to their conversation than others, depending on who the outside ear is listening.
yeah,
But with all that being said, though, you have to recognize the accomplishments made, no matter how big or small, and then again appreciate the way these guys play the game and their approach to the game individually.
yep. And that's the thing with it is that I've said this to multiple people, and they always look at me, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I respect LeBron James. I do. I respect everything that he's done. I respect that of this particular generation of basketball players, there really
Mm,
has not been nobody better. Not even close.
mm,
Like the gap between LeBron and the next best person, like I love KD and all that. And trust me,
Yeah.
this is not even holding against, like, I don't hold it against KD that he came to the Warriors. Like, I just don't. Like, but I admit that LeBron's dominance of the era far exceeds what KD has been able to accomplish. KD's dominance came in a very short amount of time while rolling with the Warriors. You know, his true dominance of the
Mm-hmm.
league. LeBron's has been over the bulk of 17 years of play. So
Yeah.
I give LeBron James credit for what he is within this bubble, just the same way that I give Jordan credit for what he was within that bubble. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
like those people that try to cross them over. Oh, well, what would happen if you brought Jordan in his prime to this era? It would be something to see. I don't necessarily know if he'd score 40 a game or whatever, but I think it would be something to see because you would see Jordan with a lot of people who athletically are on the same level as him, which is what made a huge difference back in his era. Jordan was athletic when athleticism wasn't necessarily rampant in the NBA. You had a lot of good
Yeah.
fundamental players who played the game well, but they weren't necessarily as athletic as the players are today. So you take Jordan in his prime with his athleticism, and you put him into a league full of people that are just about as athletic as he is. Can't necessarily do all the things he could do, but physically are as athletic as him, and it would be interesting to see. I definitely think it would be interesting to see. I can't predict what would happen, but I think it would be interesting to see. Now, where I think people miss my point when I say it's not the same bringing LeBron back to the '80s is that LeBron would have been trained differently. LeBron would have been taught differently. LeBron wouldn't have been brought up in an era of positionless basketball.
Yeah.
So I don't think that LeBron James, if raised, trained, and everything else back in the '80s, the way that they did it back then, I don't think he's LeBron James the way he is right now. He managed to meet his peak physical level, so on and so forth, because of the machines, the doctors, the people, the routines that he had at his disposal now. He wouldn't have had all of
Yeah.
those training techniques at his disposal back then. So I don't think I honestly think LeBron James is Karl Malone, and people get offended when I say that. But I'm like, well, wait a minute. Despite not winning a championship, Karl Malone had a hell of a career.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can't knock his career. He had a Hall of Fame career. He just didn't have a ring. So I'm like, because I think somebody of LeBron's size would have immediately been stuck in the low post and basically would have been told, stay here, grab rebounds, do putbacks. You know what I'm saying? He really
Yeah.
wouldn't have been let loose the way he is in today's game of positionless basketball. I don't think he really sees the small forward position as often as he did. And if he does, he's not the 280-pound train that he is now. Because you look at small forwards back then, Larry Bird, etc. Those guys were skinny.
Yeah.
You know, you put him in that time, he's probably about as thin as they are. Everybody's under this assumption that LeBron would still be Monstar LeBron even back then, and just understand he wouldn't have been. And even if he was,
Mhm.
he wouldn't have played the positions that he plays right now. Because you look at Magic, people are like, "Oh, well, Magic was 6'9" and he was a point guard," but look at how skinny Magic was.
Yeah.
Magic wasn't exactly as thick as LeBron is right now. You know, so
Mhm.
so you got to think about that when you're transposing error. It's not taking anything away from him. I'm just saying, could you imagine Michael Jordan if he had all of these techniques and training techniques at his disposal? Michael
Yeah, he'd be
didn't have all that.
much more dominant.
You know what I'm saying? He didn't have that, and he did what he did to the league. Imagine if he did. So that being said, it's a null debate because of the fact that of that one word that we've used several times here, subjective. Which means
Yeah.
whatever your answer is to the question of who is your GOAT, you're right. Doesn't matter. I can sit here and try to
Yeah.
convince you that my GOAT is the better GOAT and that your GOAT should be the same as mine. I can try to convince you of that, but the reality of it is at the end of the day it's your choice. And you can have whoever
Yeah.
you want. You know. Like I said, they could pick somebody who played 2 days in the NBA and say that's my GOAT because he averaged 20 a game in the 2 games that he played in the NBA. That's my GOAT right there. Okay, that's your GOAT. I don't agree with you, but hey, that's your GOAT. And I think if people started looking at the GOAT conversation more like that, they would begin to appreciate the GOAT conversation a lot more, and it would
Yeah.
stay more respectful. But tell me how you're feeling, brother, with what's going with this COVID taking away baseball, or not baseball, but basketball mid-season, as the Lakers were on a run on top of the West.
Yeah, that really sucks. 'Cause they were really playing some good ball, really coming together as a team. You can see things, moving in the right direction. So to have that cut short and the possibility to compete for a championship is is heartbreaking.
Yeah,
And it's worse, as a nation, we have to deal with this sickness and this tragedy, this disease, this COVID-19 or whatever. But of all the biggest losses, me personally, that one was probably the biggest.
yeah,
So
I can
yeah,
understand that. Like I said, as a Warriors
it's
fan, I
hard
ain't
to.
tripping about the season being over, because season wasn't shit this year anyway. I was already looking at next year, but as a Lakers fan, I could see where that would be like, God damn. It'd be like if this COVID shit shut down football mid through last season when the Niners were 8-0. It'd be like, man, we could have went to the Super Bowl this year. Like y'all fucking with that. Oh man. So yeah, we a couple months later. Why don't you give your thoughts? And the cut isn't as deep, so it doesn't hurt as much. Why don't you give your thoughts on the Super Bowl, brother?
No, it was a good game. Um, I was surprised that the Niners had got there. Honestly, but they were a good team, and everything started clicking at the right time for them. And they really came together. So,
Yeah.
but that Chiefs, the Patrick Mahomes is the truth. I mean, he's probably, if not the best quarterback in the league, definitely top three.
Oh yeah.
And the way he's able to, manipulate that offense and put points on the board,
Yeah.
as well as, what he can do to football. That dude is nice.
Yeah, he is.
So I thought the Niners were going to win it. I think as did everyone else. But you got to play for the full 4 quarters. And
Now,
you know, mm,
no, I don't blame it on. See, here's the thing about it. Here's where I'm mad. All right, and this is where a lot of people disagree with me. A lot of people go, well, Jimmy Garoppolo and he missed the pass to Emmanuel Sanders, and that was why. And I say, well, there were multiple factors into why that pass was missed, and it wasn't all Garoppolo. People are
yeah,
acting like Sanders had like 5 yards worth of separation, and what's his name missed him. Like the dude was hot on his tail, so there's no guarantee even if Jimmy drops that in there that Sanders is going in for the touchdown. You know,
yeah,
so
mm,
so I get what people are saying, and yeah, that play factored. But what upset me was I believe it was about minute 30 left on the clock. I
mm,
think we were only down 3 at the time or 4.
mm,
And I think the Niners were only down 3 or 4 at the time. And bro, that last touchdown that the Chiefs scored, that fucking
yeah,
Olay defense that the entire 11 on the field played for that one play to let that nigga scamper 30 yards for a
mm,
touchdown, that had me throwing shit at my TV.
yeah,
That had me pissed off because I'm like, wait a minute. I could see if it was like 3 seconds left in the game and y'all Olayed that shit, let that motherfucker score one more, whatever. It really only affects the spread. The
yeah,
people who bet on the spread. But for us to have a minute and a half left, knowing we have the capabilities and the weapons on offense to move the ball down the field if given the chance, and you just olay that shit and put the game completely out of reach,
yeah,
a top 5 defense in the league this year, statistically at least. I don't know about a top 5 heart,
mm,
but I know. But after that play, but I know about top 5 statistically. There's no way that play should have
yeah,
happened like that. And so as much as I love the Niners and the fact that shit pissed me off, and as much as I'm
Mm,
okay with the loss, because like you said, it was the Chiefs. It's not like they hadn't done that twice before this playoffs, during this playoffs.
mm,
So it's not like it was a big surprise that they did it. But I just kind of felt like that was just the defense just going, oh well, fuck it. Offense couldn't get it done, so just fuck it. We tired. And it's like, really, y'all, for a Super Bowl, and y'all playing like that.
mm,
So, like I said, hopefully, I know this much: the team's young, the championship window is not closed. They still got another year or two, especially considering most of their cats on the defensive side of the ball are still there. Most of the cats that were there last year
yeah.
that helped them be one of the top defenses are still there. Everybody except for Buckner, and we'll get to that soon. Uh, and so I think they have a shot at being a decent team next year. Maybe not 13-3, maybe not dominating the league the way they did this year, but they have a chance to be a 10-11 win team to potentially secure a wild card spot or better,
Mm,
and and try to run it back. But I don't know. Speaking of, let's talk real quick before we dive into that draft. You've heard about the change to the playoff format, right?
nuh-uh.
Okay, so here we go. New playoff format in the NFL is like this. Now, only the number one seed gets a bye. Okay?
Okay.
The next six teams all get in. So there's one extra team that gets in. There's seven teams instead of six. But the
Mm,
important factor is only the number one seed gets the bye. No more number one and number two, only the number one seed. Okay? Then
dang.
I would assume that just like before in the playoffs, hold on. Just like before in the playoffs, when after the 2 through 6 teams play, probably 2-6, 3-5, or not 3-5, 2-6, yeah, 3-5, and then that would just leave four. No, wait a minute. Oh, 7-2. So 2-7, 3-6, and 4-5. After those seeds play, I would
Mm,
assume the lowest remaining seed, just like before, would travel to the number one seed's home, and then number two and
mm,
three would be, the next two would be based off of whatever seeding they have would decide who goes to whose house, and then you have your divisional round, then your conference championship, then your Super Bowl. So basically, the big factors are no more number two seed bye, and they're adding a seventh team that gets in now.
mm. That's what's up. That's cool.
I kind
A
of
few more teams get a chance. Yeah, and few more teams get a chance to compete, and opens it up a little bit. Probably an extra week of football, but
no,
you
actually, I
know,
think they said I think
uh,
they said it's the same. It's the same amount of weeks because basically the
uh,
the 2 through 7 of the NFC would play on Saturday. There'd be 3 games on Saturday, and then there'd be 3 games on Sunday of wild card weekend.
oh, okay,
Then you would have all the AFC games on Sunday. So you get 3 games on Sunday, 3 games on Saturday, and then the next week it would go the same way it would before: 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday, and then you would go one, and then you would go 2 games on Sunday for the championship round, and then you get the bye week and then Super Bowl. So it doesn't add any extra weeks. It's just that you add an extra game to each side of the each conference on wild card weekend.
okay. That's what's up.
And now no more to number two seeds only having to win 3 games to get to the Super Bowl. They now got to win four, or to win a Super Bowl. They now got to win four. The only team that gets the shot at winning 3 games to win a Super Bowl is the one seed. So to me, it's just interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's much more exciting football. I like it.
Yeah,
It's cool.
getting an
Hopefully, we
extra.
get a chance to see if it all how it all works.
Yeah,
But
when it
at this
actually
point,
plays out. Let's see.
yeah, doubtful. Yeah.
So, all right. So now let's get on to the draft. The NFL draft 2020, the first ever teledraft. That was interesting. Did you actually get to watch any of the draft, or did you just kind of?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. I watched like little bits and pieces, but not much of it. I read up on the picks, but that's about it.
All right. It was an interesting draft. It was interesting to watch, like because basically Roger Goodell was in his house calling out the picks, and then they had screens with a bunch of fans that were video calling in to cheer and all that. Even though some of them, I don't think all of them were fans. I think some of them were literally like the same people, just what I'm saying, just putting on different hats.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? To look like they different people. All
yeah.
right. So, you know what? Let's start with the Vegas Raiders instead of the 49ers. Round one, I'm just going to read off the picks and then we can give some overall thoughts on them. Round one, they picked up a wide receiver, Henry Ruggs the third out of Alabama.
Mm,
One of the best wide receivers in the game. It was him, Jerry Judy, and C.D. Lamb that were considered the top three guys. They had two first round picks via the trade with Khalil Mack, so they got Chicago's first round draft pick, which was number 19, and they chose a cornerback, Damon Arnett, the guy that played opposite the top guy in the draft that went first. I forget what his name is at Ohio State. To play cornerback for them. Then they went in round three. They went with two wide receivers with Lynn Bowden Jr. out of Kentucky and Brian Edwards out of South Carolina. Evidently, they traded into both of those picks, or the second, third round pick and the second, first round pick. Their third round pick was safety Tanner Muse out of Clemson. You know, we all know how good Clemson is.
yeah.
So that should be a good pickup for him. They went offensive guard in the fourth round with John Simpson, and then they went cornerback again with Louisiana Tech's Amik Robertson. So they going in their needs were wide receiver, outside linebacker, cornerback, QB, and safety. So they addressed three of their five needs in this draft. So, what are your thoughts on those Raiders picks? The Las Vegas Raiders.
That's pretty good. They're addressing needs. Seem to be getting better. Again, if we have the NFL season, I love to see what Ruggs and Lynette do. They needed help at that receiver position.
Yeah, they do.
I liked it. I
But it's
liked.
another guy out of Alabama. You think it'll work out? You know,
Yeah.
they should be pairing him with Amari Cooper if that shit hadn't went sideways.
Well,
But oh well, you're right.
yeah. But I liked it. Actually, liked it. The other receiver from Bama better. I thought
Jerry
he was going
Judy.
to be better. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the one I
I
wanted the
thought he was
Niners
going
to
to be better.
get, but they didn't.
Yeah, but regardless, they needed somebody that come in and make an impact and give Derek Carr some help. So hopefully, that'll be the guy.
Yep.
And
So
I'm also interested in seeing how Arnett looks and if he can make that secondary any better. And the
yeah,
defense is pretty solid up front, but they got beat a lot on that back end. So if you can, give those up front guys, cover them receivers a little bit, follow them up just a little bit, and help with the run, he should make that defense a whole lot better. If he can come in and be the player that they're expecting him to be.
and I think that's the key thing to it is that I'm hoping that these picks pan out because John Gruden may have 10 years, but my God, man, like his first couple of years ain't been too good.
Yeah.
7-9, like with a team that really could have and should have been more. And I'm tired of all these people. Okay, look, let me. I don't get all the hate on Derek Carr. Because Derek Carr,
Mm-hmm.
when put in the optimal situation, you look at that damn near MVP year when they went 12-4 and he got hurt right before the playoffs with Jack Del Rio. Derek Carr, when you put the right pieces around him, is a damn good quarterback. And I really wish everybody would stop
Yeah,
saying,
for
"Oh, well,
real.
they needed to." Las Vegas needs to look at Tom Brady. Las Vegas needs to look at so and so. Las Vegas needs to look at so and so. They need to move on. Oh, look, they signed Marcus Mariota. They must be ready to replace Carr. Why the fuck does everybody want them to replace Carr? I just don't
Yeah.
get that. I'm like, I like the kid. I'm glad they didn't take a QB in this draft because in a bunch of mock drafts they had the Raiders taking a QB. They already got Marcus Mariota, former first round draft pick, and Derek Carr, former first round draft pick, on their roster. They don't need any more QBs.
Yeah.
So, but needless to say, I enjoyed their draft. I would say I probably give their draft about a B or a C because there's a lot of these guys that we have to see how they pan out first.
Yeah.
So,
And it's gonna be rough when we get to see anything or anybody on the field. So
you know. So now we'll move on real quick before we get to commercial break and we'll talk a little bit about the 49ers draft. I thought they had a good draft despite only drafting 5 people, but I'm looking at the ESPN draft board thing here and I'm thoroughly amazed at the fact that every single pick the Niners actually took, they traded for. They didn't take a single one of the picks that they had coming into the draft.
yeah.
But one of the most impressive things that they did to me was John Lynch must have gotten that call on day 2 of the draft that Joe Staley was retiring. He had to have.
Mhm.
Because for them to all of a sudden pull the trigger, knowing that they have limited amount of draft picks on the Trent Williams deal, means that they knew Staley was retiring before he announced he was retiring. You know, either that or John Lynch is just that type of motherfucker to just be like, if Staley stays, then we got 3 good tackles. But, just in case he goes, we got backup. You know, but the trade for Trent Williams was huge. But the draft picks that they actually took, and the one that's the number one that surprised me because they could have gotten Jerry Jeudy at that spot,
Mhm.
um, was at number 14. They take Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle out of South Carolina. This kid's supposedly good and supposedly can eat up a lot of DeForest Buckner's snaps and can perform well. We'll see because they did trade Buckner for the number 13 pick to the Indianapolis Colts. Then they moved
Mhm.
up from 31 to 25 to take a kid named Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State. Supposedly a rangy guy. One of the key things that I remember them saying about him in the draft is that his wingspan is he's got that rare thing where like it's not a disease or anything, but most people their wingspan from fingertip to fingertip is their height. Like it's almost like a
Yeah.
perfect circle. But with him, his
Mhm.
wingspan is something like 4 to 5 inches longer than his actual height. And like he's
Mhm.
that type of kid to be able to get up there and like catch them contested balls. And he's not very tall though. He's only what 6 foot, 205 pounds. So, but he had a 90 grade by ESPN. Was considered number 5 at his position. Then they went on ahead and traded back into the 5th round after trading away their 4th and 5th round picks to get Trent Williams. They traded back into the 5th round to get an offensive tackle out of West Virginia by the name of Colton McKivitz, and then traded up in the 6th round to get tight end Charlie Warner out of Georgia, and then went
Mhm.
out and got another wide receiver in Jawan Jennings out of Tennessee in the 7th round. So Doaul,
Mhm.
they only filled one of their supposed needs, which was safety, cornerback, offensive guard, offensive tackle, and outside linebacker. Even though I think the kid McKivitz, they said can be moved inside to guard. Um, they didn't meet any of their other needs. What are your thoughts on their total haul, as well as trading away? They got rid of the contracts of Marquise Goodwin and Matt Bredia. Goodwin went to the Eagles, I believe, and Bredia went to the Dolphins.
Mhm.
So, your thoughts on the
Um,
Niners draft?
but was definitely different, good. seemed like they were just about their roster. But I like the Kinlaw pick,
Yeah.
especially after trading Buckner. I think he should field them and come in and help them right away. So, they did well.
Yeah.
They did well.
Well, thank you. I'd say overall, I give their draft about a B. Like it wasn't a. We'll have to see if they hit anything out the park. But if to be honest with you, if just the number 1 and 2 guys, Kinlaw and Ayuk, contribute, I'd say
Mm-hmm.
it's a win. I'd say this draft is a complete win because the bottom line is that the Niners are still stacked on the offensive side of the ball and stacked on the defensive side of the ball. Me and Suave were having this conversation the other day because he was like, "Dude, I don't know that Buckner loss, man. That Buckner loss is going to be huge." And I'm like, "Yes and no." I was like, because they can still use Armstead, and he's like, "Yeah, man, but Armstead, like I was like, you forget Armstead led the team in sacks last year, not Buckner."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like Armstead had the breakout year last year. Buckner had his 2 years ago and had a slightly above average, but he was really good against the run. I was like, if they can find another D tackle or possibly utilize Solomon Thomas to eat up some space in there, I was like, you got to remember the defense still has to. I was like, an offensive line still has to respect the fact that they have Nick Bosa and D Ford coming at them from both angles.
Yeah.
A quarterback still has to respect the fact that he has Fred Warner and Quan Alexander manning the middle, the second level. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And Richard Sherman and Jimmy Ward manning the third level. All that still has to be respected. So really, Kinlaw is stepping into a perfect situation to shine. If he does it, it's on him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's still so many, even with Buckner gone, there's still so many weapons, even though I didn't want to see Buckner go. I was hoping they would lock him up. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad the man got his money, he got his $21 million, and will be all right. I don't think it's going to be as huge as everybody thinks. And now that they've drafted Kinlaw, I really don't think it's going to be as huge as everybody thinks. Then you flip it over to the offensive side of the ball. Okay, Emmanuel Sanders left, and Emmanuel Sanders was huge. Don't let anybody think that I am discrediting his contributions to that team once he got there and on that Super Bowl run. He was huge.
Yeah.
But having him and his veteran presence allowed that team to develop guys like Deebo Samuel. Allowed them to
Yeah.
realize that they may not necessarily have everything that they think they have in Dante Pettis. Another thing that people forget
Mm-hmm.
is that Jalen Hurd, not Jalen Hurts, not the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurd, the third round wide receiver that they drafted last year, is still a beast and
Mm-hmm.
showed that in multiple preseason games before he got injured and got put on injured reserve. Trent
Yeah.
Taylor, another one, if he can stay healthy, gives us a trio of wide receivers that's young and that's badass. In Debo, Jalen Hurd, and Trent Taylor. Not to mention this Ayuk kid can fill in and play any of the three positions, the slot out or outside, because he's got some speed.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I'm concerned, oh, and they picked up Travis Benjamin. I don't know if you remember him from San Diego.
Yeah.
He was a
Mm-hmm.
slot guy in San Diego. Actually, a pretty good fantasy guy a couple of years back. So, and then you look at their running backs. Like, people forget that, okay, guys, yeah, they had Jeff Wilson Jr. and all that, but they got Tevin Coleman coming back. They got Jerick McKinnon coming back. And they still got Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert. They're still stacked with four dudes who would probably start, if not be immediate backups anywhere they went. Their
Mm-hmm.
offensive line is now solid again with Trent Williams, who, when playing, was one of the best left tackles in the game.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to guarantee shit. I'm not going to sit on this show and say anything about the Niners are definitely going to the Super Bowl next year. But anybody that says they're definitely not, or they won't even make the playoffs, bro, nah.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know football. This team is still stacked. And yeah, is Jimmy G Tom Brady light? No, but he's Jimmy G. And that's that, and we need him to be there. And as he grows in this offense, this is only the kid's first full year, and second year on his own, not being a backup to Tom Brady in the league. Give him some time to learn the offense, and trust me, there's something that, and especially, and I think it spoke volumes, the fact that Shanahan and Lynch said no, that Brady wanted to become a 49er, and they could have made it happen, just traded Garoppolo away and made it happen. And they said, nah, we like what we got in Jimmy G. I think that speaks loads about him.
Yeah.
So, I've had my diatribe for the day. We'll go to commercial break right now, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the draft. But we'll take a look at that top 10 and the rest of the draft. Any guys we might think might stand out. You're listening to West Coast Bias right here on the 4 Aces Presents Radio Network on our Sunday lineup with Brick and Inspire Radio. And later on tonight, in about an hour, we got Cheap Pop Podcast, and then we got what else is it? Now versus Then. So keep listening, y'all. We got a great lineup.
Interruption in progress. Now hijacking into ANS 2.0 immersion rig. Now simulating the amazing nerd show. Featuring comics.
And Batman's like, you're safe here and everything, but the Joker all of a sudden pulls out a gun and shoots himself.
Movies.
People fight with lightsabers. What the hell do you want? I mean, in every one of these movies, there's a lightsaber battle.
Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna rewatch it a million times.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, give me something more.
Wrestling.
That would be awesome. Oh my god, just a monster. Fans would be like, holy, what the hell's going on? What happened to Jericho?
Horror.
It starts off like any other like home invasion type of story, and then it just goes crazy.
And more.
Hey, this is Christian.
Hey, this is Damon.
And we are the Amazing Nerd Show.
Make sure to download us on all your favorite podcast platforms.
So, what's up? Steve Fingerstyles here, the host of the podcast, spelled D8, of course. Tune in each and every week to hear what pisses me off, what angers me, what I make fun of, and of course, my crazy rants. I also have incompetent co-hosts, cool guests, and a silent producer that sucks. So what more do you need from a podcast? You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, and the Pod Bros Network. Peace.
From the galactic depths of the comic book universe comes the ghosts of the stratosphere, ready to galvanize and energize your mind with the latest of comic book news and reviews. And why are you stopping me? Yes, that's much better. Hi, this is Andy Larson for Ghosts of the Stratosphere. Join me every week along with my co-hosts Rob Stewart and Chad Smith, as well as a cavalcade of fantastic comic book guests, as we dish out heaping helpings of the greatest and latest of comic book news and reviews. New shows posted every Tuesday with bonus shows every first Friday of the month. You can find us on iTunes and Stitcher under Ghosts of the Stratosphere, as well as on our website, www.gotstratosphere.com. Hope to see you soon, folks.
And fucking, yeah, guys, what's up, y'all? We're back on air, but I'm gonna finish telling this story. So I did this. So I changed them right, advanced past the Super Bowl, and then the next thing it's like, yeah. So are you sending your owner to the Hall of Fame or what? And I'm like, Hall of Fame? Wait a minute, no, next season, like off season draft, like nah, is he going to the Hall of Fame or not? What the fuck? I was like, all this because I changed dude's position? Like, nah, dude. So. Nah, I looked it up online. You only get 30 years with the online with the regular franchise. So I had reached 30 years. So only didn't reach the Super Bowl in 5 of the years. I had 25 NFC championships and 22 Super Bowls.
Man, that's what's up.
So, and my guys own the all-time rushing yardage, all-time receiving touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, and I had a guy in the top 5 of the all-time sacks because I didn't play my defense. I just let them do their thing.
Mhm.
But anyway, that was Madden talk. Sorry, y'all. Just was telling Doobie about me finally completing the Madden. I've never had that happen. I've never like not bought a new Madden before I could finish the old one. So,
Oh yeah.
but but yeah, but all right, y'all. So we're gonna talk more about this draft. Let's see. So we're going first round. So let us know, bro. What do you think about the Joe Burrows pick? Like, the kid did break some
Mm,
records at LSU and did his thing, 60 touchdowns and all that stuff. But do you think he'll supplant Andy Dalton immediately, or do you think this is going to be a wait and see type thing?
um. So that's the thing. It was all 50-50 to begin with. You know,
Yeah,
like I like the pick. He's a good quarterback. You know, and he's probably going to be a great NFL quarterback one day. But if the Bengals don't draft him and pick up somebody else and fill up other needs, you know, Andy Dalton still has a couple years left. You know,
yeah,
it was just the system, the team, things around him got old, um, and the fire and motivation wasn't there. Put him in a new situation, you know, so that he's a quarterback and has a chance to compete. You know, he's still a pretty good quarterback.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, again, it's few greats, top 10. I give him that top 10 still. Again, with the right pieces around him.
right.
You know, because there was a time in Cincinnati they were consistently in the playoffs, you know, and consistently competing. They just never had a good enough team. You know, so it's a team effort. So will he supplant Andy Dalton immediately? At this point, doesn't really matter because you can get away with another season from Andy Dalton and actually have a pretty good year, you know, if you have the team in place
Yeah,
and be able to compete. Um, Joe Burrow is a rookie, so he's going to struggle, period.
yep,
You know, he's going to have good games, he's going to have bad games. The question is what's going to happen, in terms of the organization. Are they trying to compete? Are they trying to put pieces in place to compete to at least get to the playoffs this year?
yeah,
Or are they going to go ahead and roll the dice on Burrow and throw him out there to the Wolves, you know, that first year and let him, you know, just put his feet to the fire? Either
which
way,
yeah,
they can't lose. They can't lose. They can't go wrong.
right.
And, you know, because they're not expected to do much and nobody's expecting much from them. So it's all 50-50, and you can't pass up a prospect because in 2 or 3 years, regardless, I mean, he'll be the starting quarterback there. So,
I feel you, and I don't disagree at all. Like Burrow was and is going to be a quarterback somewhere one day, you know, regardless of whether or not they drafted him. So if you have a chance, now, do you think the same mentality can be applied to um, the Packers taking Jordan Love in the first round? Not only taking Jordan Love, but trading back into the first round to take Jordan Love.
well, I mean, they obviously like him, and facts are facts. Like, Aaron Rodgers only has so many seasons left in him,
True,
you
true.
know, playing at the level that he's playing at, right? So, um, you figure you can, I mean, Rodgers is your guy. That's it.
Yeah,
But much like they did when they drafted Rodgers, they still had Brett Favre there and still had 2 or 3 good seasons left in them.
right.
But by the time Favre left, Rodgers was ready. So it could be that kind of thing going on, you know, give him 2 or 3 years, let him learn and figure out what Aaron Rodgers wants to do at that point in time. And then, you know, figure which direction you want to go. But
Sure.
it's good to have a solid backup just in case, you know, and have a young guy that, you know, again, they're big on him. He looked pretty good to me. So,
All right. And now let's take a look at the number 2 pick, Mr. Chase Young. who was pretty much considered the best overall pick in the draft, defensive end, kind of like Nick Bosa was last year. Even though Bosa didn't go number one, Kyler Murray went number one. Bosa was considered the best player in the draft, in which why it was a steal that the Niners got him. And unfair for the rest of the league that they happen to have the number two pick like legit because they had a bad year the year before. But But they so like Chase Young added to Washington. You got Dwayne Haskins. You got Ron Rivera over there. You now handed the defensive-minded Ron Rivera a beast of a young boy in Chase Young, and I will always remind people Washington is the team that picked up Reuben Foster when the Niners put him on waivers. So they have Reuben Foster too, and he was a beast when he played for San Francisco. Even though he got let go, not on some bullshit on the Niners' part, on some bullshit on his own part, he did land in Washington. So now Washington has that stud DN to go with that stud linebacker, and I expect Washington to make a little noise next year.
Well, that's why I said that the Washington, Cincinnati drafting Joe Burrow was all 50-50.
Yeah.
Because if they had drafted Chase Young, well, that immediately improves their defense, which was actually pretty good last year.
Yeah.
And there's going to be some more quarterbacks coming out this year. So I thought Cincinnati would have taken Chase Young immediately, upgrade the defense.
Yeah.
And then bring Dalton back. You still got a couple of good backs, Giovanni Bernard and I forget the other guy, and AJ Green. AJ Green over there, of course.
Yeah.
So
and Tyler Boyd too.
That I think that makes Cincinnati a little more dangerous right now.
Yeah.
But they're ready to get rid of Andy Dalton and be moved on and already looking forward to replacing him, that they figured that they couldn't pass on Joe Burrow. But Chase Young, I think, gives them a reason to pass on Joe Burrow because, again, he makes them a competitive team this year in a division that might be open because, Pittsburgh is 50-50. You don't know if they're going to get better, and they missed the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Baltimore is solid, but, again, they had
Baltimore did just add Calais Campbell. Yeah, they did just add Calais Campbell too.
So they're pretty much a team that's gonna have a lot on the division, but again, with that other playoff seed opening up, that could put them in a place to where, okay, even if Pittsburgh gets better and Cincinnati finishes third in their division, they could still possibly make the playoffs.
Yeah, get that 7th seed.
So, they're to me, I think that was the mistake. Which is what you use the draft for to get better, in the future. But if there's a player that can impact your team as a whole right now and make your whole team better, and add wins to the board right now, Chase Young was that player. Not that Joe Burrow wasn't, but they're gonna have to have more pieces on offense. They're gonna need more than just AJ Green.
Yeah.
They're gonna need a stronger running game. Again, he's a rookie quarterback, so he's gonna struggle.
Joe Mixon's really gonna have to step up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are very few rookies that can come in and just able to dominate.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think they needed a dominant quarterback, right now. You got a pretty good Andy Dalton, solid game manager. He's not going to put you in bad spots. And again, if you improve that defense, adding Chase Young probably adds 2-3 more wins to their record this year.
Yeah.
Adding Joe Burrow doesn't necessarily do that. It keeps them about where they were at.
Yeah. No, and that's 100% truth. It's like, I'll use a contrast. I'll use it so as to not to repeat a lot of what you just said. I'll use a contrast. Last year was a similar position with Arizona and San Francisco, with the 1-2 pick. And Arizona, just like LSU, or not LSU, just like Cincinnati, went quarterback, which allowed that DN to drop. Now, here's where the contrast comes in. Unlike the Bengals, who had a starting quarterback in place, Rosen wasn't Kingsbury's guy. So Arizona needed a quarterback a lot more than the Bengals do. Because even if they take Nick Bosa and they stick with Josh Rosen, you now got this whole conflict where the head coach doesn't have faith in the quarterback that he has. They don't have Kyler Murray, so on and so forth. At least with drafting Murray, they solidified their quarterback position for the next 10, 15 years, and they can work on their defense, et cetera, later, which they did actually add a beast of a kid, and we'll talk about him in a minute, to their defense, what do they say, Swiss Army knife of a defensive player. The kid can play anything from safety to D-line. So yeah, Arizona got made up for taking a quarterback last year. But this year, I agree with Doaul. Like, Cincinnati could have made themselves instantaneously better right now by adding Chase Young, because Dalton's still a decent quarterback, and especially if he's out there throwing to guys like Tyler Eifert, Tyler Boyd, and AJ Green.
AJ Green.
And so, like, going defensive end with this, and then you could have picked up a tackle or two to help protect Dalton. Dalton has proved in the past that he can succeed if you put a solid team around him. So you still had a couple of years, and like you said, there's other quarterbacks coming out next year that you could have taken. Or shit, you could have taken Jalen Hurts.
Consider this, right? What if they sit Joe Burrow this year? They sit Joe Burrow, they start Andy Dalton. What have they really done? Like, what impact did you really make in the draft?
Number one pick. Exactly.
So now the draft that you had this year, the person that could have the biggest impact on your team, you still have to wait 2 or 3 years for him to begin to start seeing his full potential.
Unless Zach Taylor just hates Andy Dalton so much that he's automatically going to start Joe Burrows from day one, then that's something different. But even if you do that, your team hasn't gotten any better. Whereas with the addition of Chase Young, your team could have gotten better right now. And like I said, not to mention the fact that you let Chase Young fall to a defensive-minded coach like Ron Rivera, who's going to use that boy like a beast. So it was just like Nick Bosa dropping into the hands of Robert Saleh, brother. Like, that was a whoo. Saleh was like, "Thank you, Lord Almighty, I will go to church every Sunday from now on before I come to the game." Like, thank you. He gave him one of the best front lines in football. All right, the number 3 pick was one Mr. Jeff Okudah, a cornerback out of Ohio State. This kid's a beast. Sorry, my landlord's cutting the grass in the back. I want to say, the kid was a beast. He was easily considered. This was the kid that I was saying was opposite of the guy that Arnett that the Raiders got. So this kid is easily considered one of the best corners in the game. He was the number 1 at his position, number 5 overall player in the draft. So your thoughts on the Lions adding to that defense to try to get Matthew Stafford some help on the other side of the ball?
I mean, that's where they needed the help at, most immediately. And then they just lose, I think, a couple of defensive backs this year.
Yeah, they traded Darius Slay to Philly, and I forgot who the other one that they lost.
So they need someone who's going to come in and start, and if he is the best corner in the draft, and he's the guy for your defense. So addressing your needs, and making the defense better. Good pick.
For sure. All right, so the Giants, who had the number 4 pick, had the number 6 pick last year and took Daniel Jones at the surprise of everybody out of Duke, but the kid played some good football. Went out and found somebody to protect this kid's blind side with Andrew Thomas, tackle out of Georgia. I think it was a good pickup because I think the kid's a good run blocker and the kid's a good pass blocker, so he helps Daniel Jones and he helps Saquon Barkley have another guy out there, another big guy out there moving the or create lanes for him. So, your thoughts on the Giants taking a tackle with their first pick in the draft?
You can't go wrong with a lineman. They're okay everywhere else and still rebuilding. So, offensive line is a good place to start.
You always want to protect your QB if you can. Anybody that you can get to help protect your QB and keep him upright when you feel you have your franchise QB is always a good pick as far as I'm concerned. Next up, I'm going to kind of take these guys together because they've kind of been tied to each other since the beginning of the draft process. But at number 5, the Dolphins take Tua Tagovailoa to add to their QB room that now consists of Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh Rosen, and Tua Tagovailoa. I'm not even going to try to say that last name anymore. Tua. And Oregon QB, senior QB, Justin Herbert ends up going to the Chargers. So of these two, who do you think got the better long-term quarterback?
Probably the Chargers. Because he's probably going to come in and, he'll be starting within a couple of years. I don't see that until in Miami with Fitzpatrick and Rosen in front of him. Not that he couldn't. Obviously, he's going to go and compete, but
right.
He's got a proven veteran in front of him, guy who knows how to manage and win games, and another guy who was supposed to be a starter somewhere else, and they brought him to be the starter last year. So long term, I think Herbert going to San Diego. It all depends. Long term, you mean longer career?
No,
longer probably too, because he'll be coming off the bench.
We can change the scope of the question. Who do you think will be quicker to start?
Herbert,
yeah,
San Diego.
Yeah, I'm thinking so too, and that's that kind of leans into the better long term career, because I think Herbert will be set up for more success than Tua will be in Miami. I think if Tua gets to start within the next year or two, like if they trade Rosen or find a trade partner and trade Rosen to maybe like Jacksonville, or Fitz decides to retire or some shit, and Tua moves up the depth chart, by chance, I think he can work his way into starting in the next year or two. But most likely his first start is not but 2 or 3 years away. Herbert, I actually think Herbert can end up winning the job this year, because really all he has to outplay is Tyrod Taylor. Phillip Rivers is in Indianapolis. So all Herbert has to outplay is Tyrod Taylor. And I'm not saying Tyrod Taylor's not a great quarterback, and he does have to work with the fact that the coach Anthony Lynn really likes Tyrod Taylor, so much so that he turned down the opportunity to try to sign Tom Brady. I don't think Brady was really interested in going, but they didn't even pursue Brady because they were happy with Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
So that's really all Herbert has to overcome, is just prove on the field, hey, coach, I'm a better quarterback than Tyrod Taylor. And I think Herbert has some intangibles that Tyrod doesn't. Not that Tyrod's not a damn good quarterback. But that's why I say I could see Herbert starting before the year's over, especially if things start going downhill with Tyrod Taylor at QB. They lose the first 3 or 4 games, we might see Herbert starting by game 5. I think if Tua, I think it would take Fitz having a nosedive and like them losing the first 3 games, and then Rosen coming in behind them and losing like the next 3 before Tua would start this season. And I just don't see that necessarily happening. So we'll move on to pick number 7, which was the Carolina Panthers, and that new coach out of Baylor, Matt Rule. And his first pick in his first year was defensive tackle Derek Brown, to add to the other D tackles like Starla Tuatee. He was the number 1 overall defensive tackle, number 3 overall player with a 94 grade, 6'5", 326 pounds. A football player.
That's a big boy.
So what you think of the Panthers pick?
Again, addressing needs. up front, another bulldozer. Cam is gone. So they don't have, they're not gonna have a mobile quarterback back there anymore. And signing what's his name?
Teddy Bridgewater.
No, not Bridgewater, the running back.
McCaffrey.
Yeah, signing into that long-term deal. Need some people to protect him. So
yeah,
looking to go. I think run heavy. That's a big boy.
Well, no. He's not an O tackle. He's a D tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they went
Okay,
defense.
Yeah. Excuse me. Well, that definitely helps because they didn't they lose Kuechly?
Yeah, he retired.
Kuechly retires, so
That's somebody to fill
I
the
need
hole
somebody
in the
to
middle.
plug up that middle. Yeah.
So, but for sure. I want to say, all right, now we get to Arizona. And like I said, this kid's a multi-dimensional, like 5'2" athlete. Like I said, he can. I'll just read you the little draft thing. He was the number 1 position outside linebacker, number 4 overall, 94 grade, 6'4", 235. The Cardinals ranked dead last in total defense last year, and coordinator Vince Joseph should be thrilled to get one of the most talented and versatile defenders in the draft. Simmons probably will supplant Jalen Thompson and Deontay Thompson as the starting strong safety, but he could see time at linebacker depending on the matchup of that week. The idea of Simmons rushing off the edge opposite Chandler Jones is also intriguing. That was Steve Muick from ESPN in his assessment of the kid post-draft. But like I said, they're getting a 5'2" athlete, a kid that can play anything from safety to O-line to outside linebacker to D-line. Man.
Mm-hmm.
When you can line somebody up in that many different places, it's like a kid on Christmas for a D coordinator.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, your thoughts on Isaiah Simmons is his name, out of Clemson.
I really hadn't heard much from him, so it'll be interesting to see what he does this year.
Yeah. And yeah, I think, and he comes into an immediate division where he's going to have to make an impact in order for, to effectively keep his job. Sorry, you playing the NFC West, boy. It's going to be difficult out here. All right. The number 9 pick was the one and only Mr. C.J. Henderson, the cornerback out of Florida. I believe he was considered the number 2 best cornerback, number 13 player overall, 91 grade from ESPN. The kid was a beast. I say he sits at 6'1", 204 pounds, so he's big, he's lanky, and I think that he'll make an instant impact in Jacksonville, considering that there's not much to the depth chart now that they've traded away A.J. Bowie and they traded away Jalen Ramsey. So the kid will be able to try to come in and instantaneously make an impact. Your thoughts on C.J. Henderson going number 9 to the Jags?
Well, they needed help. I was a one-trick pony for 1 year, and they were good for 1 year. So hopefully he can come in and do what Jalen Ramsey was doing and make them better. But I doubt it though, because it's just a team that needs a lot of work
from top to bottom. Their manager's son is more focused on wrestling than he is on running the team, and the owner's son, and then the owner himself is doing God knows what. So somebody needs to make some decisions around there and make some things happen so the team can get back, because they traded away Nick Foles and are going to let Gardner Minshew be their starting quarterback next year. Yeah, they're making smart decisions in Jacksonville, all right. All right, so the final pick we're going to kind of go over here before we let these lovely people go on about their day is the Cleveland Browns. Actually, no, we'll talk about a couple more picks. Cleveland Browns taking Alabama O-tackle Jedrick Wills Jr., 6'4", 312-pound tackle out of Alabama, going to the Cleveland Browns to help protect one Mr. Baker Mayfield. Your thoughts on the Browns taking a tackle at number 10?
Good job. Good job. You know, they could have picked up a couple of different players there, but again, you can't go wrong picking offensive line.
Yeah. Now, there's two other picks I did want to talk about, and that was because we had mentioned them earlier. But one was Jerry Jeudy, who ended up landing in Denver. And the other was CeeDee Lamb, who ended up landing in Dallas. Those three were considered the top three wide receivers in the draft: Ruggs, Jeudy, and Lamb. So where do you think about where each one of them landed? We discussed Ruggs in Oakland already. So what do you think about Jeudy in Denver and Lamb in Dallas?
Yeah, I don't think Denver really knows what they quarterback like. So I may take a little off for
They have Drew Lock right now as their starter in Denver.
Yeah, but CeeDee Lamb going to the Cowboys is going to be huge. Putting him opposite Mark Cooper and giving Dak Prescott another weapon to throw to should help this team. But again, that's going to come down to play calling and their defense. So, but I like CeeDee Lamb. He's probably the best pickup out of the three.
Out of three, right on.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that'll do it for us for this week. Like I said, we'll be back in about another month, hopefully with the one and only, the incomparable Miss Heather, Miss O'Malley will hopefully be joining us for the next show. But that'll do it for us for this week. Like I said, stay tuned for all the rest of the great shows today, as well as the rest of this week, right here on the 4 Aces Presents Radio Network. This has been West Coast Bias. We'll see you in a month. Any last words for him, Doaul?
Stay home and watch The Last Dance.
There you go. Peace.